really saw who she was and who we were meant to be. So it's a very powerful story, and it's full of the kinds of questions that you and I, as people of faith, need to awaken a world that is in the slumber, that is the narcotic of media and drugs and self-help and all these other things running to and fro of our busyness. And we need to help them to stop, to begin to contemplate these kinds of questions. Okay, enough of that book. I want to go on to perhaps my favorite story. Parker's Back is pretty good too, and I do really like that, and I'm actually going to be writing on that. But I love The Lame Shall Enter First. The Lame Shall Enter First, and I'll try to be brief, really can be read on 4 levels. First, it's just a great story about Shepherd. By the way, the names that Flannery O'Connor uses sometimes are very revealing. Not always, but sometimes very revealing. And so here we have Shepherd, who reminds you of Jesus the Great Shepherd or something like that. And he was anything but a shepherd, but he tried to be. He was trying to be. And then Norton, his son, his 8 or 10-year-old son, and then we had Rufus, who is this juvenile delinquent. And those are the 3 major characters of the story. And you can read it as a very interesting story of the son and the shepherd trying to make sense out of their life after the death of Norton's mother and Shepherd's wife, and how they're trying to live together, how he as a single parent is trying to exist, and then how he just empties himself into other people and other things, into the volunteering to do counseling, and that's how he meets Rupert. And Rupert is this broken person. His parents apparently, I can't remember what it was, died, or they were out of the picture. He's raised by a kind of a grandfather who had exaggerated religious beliefs. So anyway, so there's Rupert, and he has this problem with his leg. Now, so you can read it as that story and how they manage their relationships and go through that. On a second level, you can look at it as a psychological, interesting, because Flannery really develops the psychological character of Rufus, who really understands he's a sinner, really understands something about hell and heaven. Shepherd, of course, doesn't understand this, and he just thinks he can overcome things by himself, and so he has this other view of in his own psychological issues. And then the son, Shepherd's son, who Norton, who's just a child, a sweet, innocent child, wants his mom, trying to make sense out of that. Okay, so there's that psychological level, and there are people who have written on that. A third level, then, that you could see is that this is Flannery O'Connor's clear critique of modernity. And this is where that story really has power. I mean, what is modernity? It's the rational mind shepherd who will solve the world's problems through education, through science, through reason, and those kinds of things. And he won't take any of this hocus pocus religion. And so when Rupert said he knows what's wrong with him, the devil's got him, Shepherd won't hear any of that. No, he won't. And he's going to solve Shepherd's problem through education. And he's going to hopefully he'll help his son too. What's a really great little moment in there is that when Rufus goes out and steals a Bible and then reads it to Norton in front of Shepherd while he's coaching a game. And there's that whole play there is just wonderful, because Shepherd doesn't believe in God, doesn't really want him to be reading the Bible, yet he wants him to be reading and learning. And so that's what at any rate, so it's a great moment. So you see him buying the boot. Again, how technology can help make us better, how he encourages the education, how science is going to make us better. And so he gets this telescope for his son and for Rufus, and he encourages that. And of course, all his efforts end up in failure. And it's Flannery O'Connor saying, you know, science and education and psychology, if you just have those things and you jettison the spiritual, revelation, and God, you will end up in destroying. There's a fourth level. We could go on about that, and I just love it. To me, that this short story is the most powerful critique of modernity. The only close book that I know like it, and there might be others, is That Hideous Strength by C.S. Lewis, who seriously, but in a more obvious way, critiques modernity and reason apart from revelation. Okay, so then the fourth level is the spiritual level, and you can see this book as a spiritual track. Most people don't get that, but it's there. How Shepherd is offered, goes through, rejects, refuses. Rufus, I know some of you wrote that, well, you think Rufus is closer to the kingdom, and he may well be, I don't know, but he rejects it. Right now, he doesn't want any part of that either. And then Norton is just trying to find his mom. And the interesting thing there is that in the end, and you'll find in the last page or two, and I just reread them just to make sure after I was reading some of your things, how Shepherd finally comes to himself. You know, he's saying over and over again how he doesn't blame himself. He was treated Rufus as good as and even better than his own son. He says it over and over again, and then the awareness comes that what have I done? What have I done? I have buried myself in good works for trying to make myself better, or try to making myself feel better about myself, when in fact what I've really done is privileged others and not taken care of what has been given me. And so he comes to that awareness in that moment right at the end. And then Flannery O'Connor has, just like the thief on the cross, in that last moment she's going to have that twist. And so he runs upstairs. He goes to the bedroom. He's not there. He runs upstairs in the attic where the telescope is, and then there is his son, who hung himself apparently. And some people say, well, horrible. What is she doing? She's trying to do two things. One is that we always think that just because you're a Christian, all your problems are going to be solved. They weren't for Flannery. She died of lupus. They weren't for Bonhoeffer. He died in a concentration camp. They weren't for Kierkegaard. He died on the street fighting a church that wasn't believing its own truth of the New Testament. They aren't for a lot of friends of mine who has children with serious needs, who themselves are going through different things, who have I have several students with health issues that either themselves or members of their family have been in the hospital or been under chemo or radiation just this week. You know, because you're a Christian doesn't mean everything's going to be fine. And Flannery wanted to follow through with that, saying, Shepherd, what you started in motion has consequences. And the consequences are real. And yet he had that moment of grace, and hopefully that will make a difference in how he lives. So it's not a very hopeful story, but Flannery also was doing something else. She was trying to peak